I'm with the Ghost Biker from Ghost Biker Explorations on Talk Haunted to Me.
This is a dangerous group. The groups that we're dealing with
Hello, Miranda. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Reece. Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
Awesome. I'm excited to talk to you. I know we've been back and forth, especially with planning on this for a
Yes,
little while. So, you know, good to finally meet you and talk to you in person, or not in person, but face to face virtually. There you go.
absolutely. Yeah, I know it's this time of year is kind of hard for people to coordinate schedules, so I'm really glad we were able to work something out to be able to chat tonight.
Yeah, it's the Super Bowl of the paranormal world for the next couple of months. So definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, getting ready to release season 5 here of Ghost Biker Explorations. Plus, there at the historic Scott County Jail, we got some really big things planned for October. So I'm kind of in a marathon, winding down actually winding down on the season, but winding up on the promotions of everything. So yeah, very excited about that.
Awesome. Well, we can go ahead and get started. Just gonna ask you a few questions, and we'll see where it takes us. Right.
Sounds good.
All right. So first off, just kind of what got you into the paranormal? Like, was it that gradual descent, or was that it was at a singular point that just got you just hooked?
Well, I really like to go at the paranormal from the storytelling angle and from like the local legends and the folklore. Growing up here in East Tennessee in the Appalachian Mountains, I spent a lot of time down at my grandmother's house listening to her tell stories about mountain haints and local legends. And she really lived by a lot of folklore, really, planted the garden by that, knew how the seasons was gonna change, based on, the signs and different things. So I really grew up listening to those stories, and that really got me into more of the paranormal side, hearing about some of those old time haint stories. And also, my dad, he used to take me, riding back roads and stuff anytime we got the opportunity, and really kind of sharing stories about the ghosts of areas and how places used to be back in, I guess, essentially the good old days. And so I always had a love for that. Always found myself in the library trying to read and catch up on as much as I could, of some of these old stories. A lot of different books. Kind of like this. The 13 ghosts and 13 Tennessee ghosts and Jeffrey. A lot of those stories, that are really passed down. That's really what got me interested. And so, back, I guess it was just a little over 13 years ago. I was working at a location, and one of the guys that was in HR, he actually saw that my background was in photography. In the professional world, my background was in marketing and graphic design and photography. And so he reached out to me to see if I would look at some photos and see if I could essentially help debunk some different photos from the paranormal team that he was on. And so started sending these photos to me. I started looking at them, and it gradually grew to looking at probably maybe 20 or 30 pictures, and to kind of pay me back for looking at the photos and essentially trying to come up with logical explanations. He invited me on an investigation. And so my first investigation was of a local bar and marina, a Mexican restaurant there in Chattanooga. And I mean, it was a great experience. There was just myself and another female and two guys. And pretty much after that, hearing my first EVPs and seeing some of the first interactions, with the flashlights and with different response tools where they were responding intelligently, I was essentially hooked at that point. And so they continued to send me photos, continued to invite me on investigations, and then invited me to join the team. And so I was a member of the team for about 8 years, And then I ended up breaking off and going solo with Ghost Biker.
Awesome. Yeah. That first investigation really can get you hooked. It's like a
It does,
drug,
you
I
know.
guess, in
I,
that sense. So,
I'll never forget, when they invited me on the investigation, it was just two members of the team. I was a member of an all male team for those years that we were investigating, and they invite me in, and so they're like, "Would you like to go to this closed building, with us two guys?" And it's kind of
right.
like not really sure what to expect. On TV, I've seen the different shows, Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, and you never know if it's really going to be truly like that or not. And so they did allow me to invite my sister-in-law with me, and so I thought, don't know what to expect, but let's go. And it was a lot of sitting and everything, which is to be expected, but it was actually a lot of fun. And I'll never forget that adrenaline rush whenever I actually heard those first EVPs on the recorder, because those guys were great. They allowed me, I didn't really have any equipment at the time, and so they let me carry one of their recorders. And so I remember sitting there and listening to it while I was working and hearing those voices, knowing, that there was nobody there because we had accounted for all the noise contaminations and stuff. And it was a mix between like nauseousness and a kick in the gut, but then also this adrenaline rush that is like, hey, I want more.
Yeah. The chill down the back when you really think you got
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
But it's just excitement. It's not like I'm terrified. It's like, oh my God, I finally got something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when it's something you can't debunk. I've had the the agony of defeat a few times where it's like, dude, I think that was really good. That's a class A EVP right there. And then it's like, oh no, never mind. I made a noise
Yeah.
that I don't
Yeah,
remember making, but there it is.
and these guys were great that I investigated with. They were really good at what they did as far as being accountable for everything that's going on around, trying to account for noise pollution, light pollution, anything that's going on around there. And then also with just ease of setup and tear down and trying to be extremely organized. So I think they were a great team to cut my teeth with and really learn a lot of great techniques with. So
Awesome.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. And they really showed the importance of not just going on an investigation and being there in the moment. And of course, everyone's got their own techniques, but being able to go in and know the importance of just how important the evidence review is, of rather than just being in the moment and being in the investigation.
Yeah, that's definitely not the sexy part of the paranormal
Exactly.
investigation piece is the hours and hours of evidence review. So,
Right.
but it's necessary. So, especially when it's nothing that like a lot of it's the viewing of the videos and stuff after the fact that maybe you weren't a part of, so you don't know if you caught anything. Like especially when you start setting up
Absolutely.
stationary cameras and stuff in the building. Yeah, you just got, and then you got to watch 10 hours of that camera and then 10 hours of this camera and then 10 hours of this camera. So yeah, it's brutal, but it's worth it.
It is, and for me, a lot of the time, I mean, you're lucky when you do hear those disembodied voices, but there's so much that happens on the EVP recorders that you just, especially when you're maybe not actively investigating, but rather just kind of sitting there having, a conversation with one of your teammates. And so, just going back and then hearing these voices and then, reaching out to your teammates and saying, hey, let's compare notes with our audio. And did you catch this? Could this have been you? Could this have been me? Just going through and listening to that, I really enjoy being able to do that.
Yeah, you mentioned well, like catching a lot of things just off of just a random conversation. And that was one of the things we kind of noticed as well. And people had told us that, but you go in there and you're gung ho about like asking the questions, leaving the space, hoping something pops in there. But a lot of times it's just the random chat you're having with someone, and then wait, what was that? Like that wasn't you, or that wasn't I. We usually have GoPros on us at all times as well. And most of
Hmm.
that, I mean, yeah, we want to see kind of what we're seeing while we're walking, but most of it's just to be able to debunk. go back and say, okay, well, this is where it was on the EVP. This is where it was on the
Mhm.
GoPro. Let's see if the audio matches up. And we hear that in the thing. And unfortunately and fortunately, it's debunked quite a few of our EVPs. So it's a blessing and a
Yeah.
curse.
It is, and because my background is in photography, things look completely different when you're there in the moment, and you're going through, especially when you're at some places like Octagon Hall or different places that have mannequins and stuff there. You just never know, and of course, we're in a heightened state whenever we go into these places. So I always like, if I can, to get there early and be able to go through. I like taking beauty shots anyways, but I like going in just for documentation purposes and taking photos just to see, because you never know how that vine growing up the side of the building is going to look after dark. It may look like, a shadow figure standing there on the side. So I like to kind of go in, and I'll take probably 100 photos, but not so much for paranormal reasons, because again, a lot of the time that's not where I get my best evidence. I have caught some things in photos, but for me it's very rare, because a lot of the time I'm able to debunk myself. But for me it's more for purposes of going in and really honing in on these rooms and seeing if maybe there's something that on the video might look like something different when you pan past, but being able to look and see if there was something there, or maybe even if something moved, because we've had pictures fall and tables pushed over and different things happen. So um, I like to be able to do that just for that purpose if I'm able to.
All right. Well, you mentioned going off on your own for to start ghost biker explorations. So, um, what brought you to that point where you decided, I need to branch off and do this thing? So,
Sure. So I am a biker,
hmm
and I was doing a lot of traveling for work, and so I found that whenever I was when I was off by myself, when we weren't investigating, I would go off riding on my motorcycle, really doing a lot more sort of urbex type stuff. And I would go to these different locations, take a lot of photography, put them on my social media sites, and they really started getting a lot of attention that way. Of a lot of people saying, well, what is this location? What's the story behind it? Is it haunted? What made you go there, that sort of thing. And so I really kind of stopped, and I would also ride my motorcycle to different investigations when I was with the team, and I found that that was a really great way to kind of focus and center myself. And I ended up, and I apologize, my cat is clawing something over here. He
yeah.
keeps making noises. I don't know if you can hear it,
Yeah,
but
I can hear him. I was like, I think it's a cat. It sounds like
yeah, I'm going to there. Okay, sorry about that.
it's fine.
Um, but anyways, so I found that that was a great way to kind of ground and center myself. And so whenever I was kind of having a conversation with a friend, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go ride my bike here. Just call me the ghost biker. And so she was like, well, I'd watch that. And plus, I was getting a lot of people asking the questions, and I thought, well, why don't I document this through video
Mhm.
rather than going in and doing it, just through the photography. And so, because I am a solo investigator for the most part, I do collaborations with people, but because I'm solo and because my background's in marketing, I thought, why don't I go in and really sort of set it up like a series, do the branding, and really just make this something that, rather than when I do an investigation, just kind of randomly put a video out, but actually have a time frame so people can expect when it's going to come out. Plus, it will give me time to not only plan the investigation, but also go through all of the huge amounts of video and audio that you have to do. So, set it up, did the branding on it, and ended up deciding to release an episode every Tuesday night during the month of October, and follow that up with a live stream on Thursdays, where I can kind of go into more detail. And so I found that it actually really took off really quick. After the first season, we did 6 different episodes, and again, kind of covering the more lesser known locations, more local legends and such. And by doing that, it took off real quick, and I was able to get partnerships with Harley Davidson and with local tourism commissions and stuff. Because being a biker, I always tell people that it's if you take a map, close your eyes, you can't touch anywhere on that map that there is not a place that has or that doesn't have a story that's worth talking about. And a lot of these little roads and small towns that we drive through, those locations have stories and have amazing histories to cover just on the establishments of those towns. And
Mhm.
so I was able to reach a really great demographic, and actually, the paranormal enthusiasts and investigators are my third and smallest demographic, but the bikers, the history buffs, and then the paranormal enthusiasts, um, ranking in that order, really enjoy watching the show. So try to keep the episodes, between 20 to 40 minutes to keep people's attention, and then really kind of cover not only the investigation, but really dive into that history and also talk a little bit about the motorcycle ride there so that I'm able to cover many different aspects.
Oh yeah, and the fact that you're able to tie something in that is a part of you, like biking, is huge. Not only for
Yeah,
the fact that you can see it when you talk about that kind of thing. You're obviously gonna put off more of a vibe because you generally care about that stuff. But it makes you're more true to yourself, and people can see that in a video and in a show. So that's really
absolutely. Well,
good.
thank you.
And it definitely it goes pretty close. You got biker, that's awesome, and that's strong, and then you got paranormal, which is crazy, wild, and strong too. I don't think it would have the same effect if it was like someone on a bicycle, like if they were
No.
toward forcing it around and then stopping and then doing it. So it definitely ties together. So
Exactly, and I've been able to over the past couple years, I've been able to organize some haunted motorcycle rides, and it really kind of helps to take the subculture of the paranormal, and of course, biking and motorcycling is another subculture, but it's a little more mainstream, and so people might not necessarily believe in the paranormal, but a lot of those people, they like to travel to these unique locations. And the majority of the people, whether they believe in the paranormal or not, I can't tell you how many times people have come up and said, I don't know if I believe in the paranormal, but let me tell you about this strange thing that's happened. Or have you seen this location? So, a lot of those people are more out traveling as well. So, it really just opens it up to a different audience. And, again, for me, it's a great way to get centered. Plus, it helps me to kind of really slim down as far as my equipment and really plan my investigations better. Because if we have a ton of equipment, we can kind of tend to sometimes just get lost and really focus on that, when this allows me to say, this is where I'm going. These are the trigger items I need. This is how I can best, plan for this investigation. So it really helps me in a lot of different areas from what I found.
all right, yeah. So since you're in you said fifth season, right? You just got done with
Yes.
it. Okay, so
It'll be releasing here in October.
in October, yeah.
Yeah.
So there should be a lot of opportunity for you to answer this next question.
Mhm.
All right, crazy stories or that you have during your investigations, or any like hauntings that you would want to share, like some of your best experience or your wildest
Mhm.
experience on that.
I've had several of those. So depending on the type of location that I'm investigating, whether it be a smaller local legend or if it's one of the more commercial locations, if I have the opportunity to sleep at a location for any period of time, I always like to do that. And so there have been a couple different locations that I have had the opportunity to investigate all night and then lay down to sleep for just a couple hours. And so I always like to leave the recorders going, the cameras, everything going, because I tend to get a lot of different activity if, when I'm sleeping versus when I'm awake and actively investigating. And so, probably one of the most interesting and probably best captures I've ever gotten has been whenever I slept at Brushy Mountain Prison. And so I've investigated there 6 times. It's been, it never tends to let down as far as activity goes. There's always something. But I did find whenever I slept there on my second investigation, I was the only person investigating there that particular night. And I got some of the best Class A EVPs I'd ever captured when I laid down to sleep. I slept for about 3.5 hours, and I ended up getting about 3 minutes and 15 seconds of Class A EVPs. Some very intelligent, some were clearly residual, but and some of them, if I had heard them in the moment, I don't know how well I would have slept. But there, and also probably Revenant Acres was another place that I slept at that I got some really cool EVPs while I was sleeping, and it's just completely different, than when you're actively investigating awake.
Yeah. Awesome. Um, so I've heard a lot. I've seen a couple of people actually, or talked to a couple of people that love Brushy Mountain. We haven't been there yet, but we do plan on it. It's one of the ones that have made the list. We just haven't got it scheduled
Yeah.
out yet. So
Brushy's really good. So it's not very far from where I grew up, and actually they took us there our senior year when it was still an active penitentiary, and so we got to go in there when it was active. We got to talk to some of the inmates, and it was really wild. So being able to go back was really cool. But it was neat to see the progression of over the 6 times I investigated there. So they officially opened their distillery, their restaurant, and as a tourist destination in 2019. But in the process, they closed in 2009. And so during that time, while they were doing construction and really getting everything set up, they were allowing people to come in and investigate. And so I think I did my first investigation there in 2014, and it was very different than the activity. I've only investigated there once since they opened, and that was a collaboration with Soul Sisters Paranormal. And so it was really neat to see that just how the activity changed with the construction of the building, and then with people coming in on a daily basis. The first 5 times that I had investigated there, I mean, it was, other than on those last couple investigations, there was not people going in on a daily basis, other than just a couple people, the people who were doing the paranormal, as well as some of the construction workers. And it wasn't until they started tearing some buildings down and doing the major construction that to me, the activity really started to change. And so that last time, and I'm not saying it's any better or any worse. It's just it evolved, I guess. And it's like anything else. When you've got people, they have hundreds of people traipsing through there, usually on a daily basis. It was very different there after that last time. And of course, there was areas that had power in there now that didn't have it when I first started investigating there. So it was really neat to be able to see that progression and to really just kind of prove to myself, at least, that activity does tend to evolve with the changes that's going on around in the atmosphere around it.
yeah, definitely. Since you've been there 6 times, right?
Mhm.
Where's a place you haven't been that you really would love to go? And this is anywhere in the world, bucket list item. Just go for it. No travel restrictions, no monetary restrictions, no scheduling conflict. Just where would you want to go?
Um, you know, I would truly. There's really two, and these could actually kind of be combined. I would love to. I've always said I've wanted to investigate some of the locations along Route 66, as well as the Mississippi Blues Trail. and Natchez Trace. So I would like to just go off on cross country motorcycle trip, hitting some of these locations, primarily not as many, especially like, say, for instance, the Mississippi Blues Trail, hit some of these areas that are lesser known, more local legend, and just take off on the bike and spend a night at each one, even if it's not a night, spend a couple hours on a pull off, just asking questions and see if I can get any type of validation to validate some of the historical claims of some of those locations.
That was such a biker answer. I should have seen that coming. That's awesome though. Yeah, that's a different answer than I get from most people, because most people are just like, oh yeah, this one or this one, and that's how I answer too. Is like ancient Ram Inn, or you know
Yeah.
something like that, Suicide Forest, those kind of things. But to have like an idea of the trip itself is original. I haven't heard that
Well,
yet, so that's pretty
yeah, well,
cool.
for me, it is about
Hmm.
it's about the trip rather than the destination, and so I think that a lot of that kind of plays in. I try not to go into a location if I'm stressed or if something's happened. Now, obviously, life happens, and so if you plan an investigation, because most of the time this stuff is planned out, you just don't know what the day is going to hold, and you can't just cancel because you've had a bad day. But I try to really contain a lot of that and not go into a location, because I do feel that that shapes a lot of the activity that we get. And so, when I plan my road trips with, if I have someone that goes with me, I'm always like making a mix CD that's got music from the different places, and we're like heavily researching places that we can stop along the way. So I think going in like that, a lot of the time it kind of changes that vibration, changes that mood and everything. So for me, just being able to go pull off, because some of my best investigations have been A, daytime, and B, shorter investigations covering some of these local stories. So just being able to be on that trip, find one of those historical spots and stop, I think that just kind of, to me, that's more exciting than picking a specific location and going there.
Yeah, sounds sounds like the good I guess a good way to look at it. It's just more. It's almost like I wouldn't say vacation, but along that lines, where it ends up being just a whole experience, and it's an enjoyable experience. So it puts you in that mood when you actually go in there. Um,
Yeah,
so
yeah. One of my favorite episodes that I put out there was actually one that was the 1944 troop train accident, which happened in Jellicoe, Tennessee. And so I always tell people, I saw this one for the first time whenever I went to. I was planning out a haunted motorcycle ride and was going up side of the mountain up 25 West, and excuse me, and I saw this. It was almost like a little 8x8 sign on a post, and it said 1944 troop train viewing spot. And so I kind of took mental note of that. And when I say there was literally nowhere to pull off, I mean, it was a drop down into the gorge. And I had to go about a quarter mile before I could pull off to get to this viewing area, even though, it wasn't where you could actually view. So I did a little research and found that it was in the top 25 troop train accidents, and it was also in the top 10 train derailments. And so I thought, I'm going to really look into this a little bit more, because this story needs to have a little more recognition than just this little 8x8 sign on a pole. And so I didn't know how I was going to be able to get down there, but I went back and ended up pulling off in that same spot. I hiked down the side of the mountain, and it just so happened there had been a flood a little bit earlier in that week. So I couldn't quite get to the spot where the viewing area was. I had to hike over some rocks, hike over some areas, and originally there was like this plaque that the Boy Scouts had put up, but just due to time and weather, it had actually been washed off the rock. And so I thought, I'm going to try this investigation. And, I did get one or two little EVPs, but I was having to use other tools, ones that, could, you could hear over the water. You could also hear over the traffic noise and stuff. So they were more alarming type tools, Ovilus, that sort of thing. And so then a week later, and what was interesting, the only thing that I got on the spirit box was when I asked where the spot of the train derailment took place. It came across the SB7. It said waterfall. And so I was also getting a lot of really good answers on my dowsing rods. And of course, I did this investigation in the middle of the day. And so I came back a week later, the waters had receded. So I hiked on down the river, and right there where the monument was this little waterfall. And so there were just little subtle responses that I got. I mean, it wasn't any type of really dynamic investigation, but I was able to really share this very cool history and this story of this derailment. And then I was able to get answers that I was able to confirm, and then also show that an investigation can take place during the day. It doesn't have to be creepy, and it doesn't have to be, I mean, we all like to get creeped out, but it doesn't have to be that for it to be an interesting investigation. And so it's kind of one of my favorites, but it also just kind of goes to show that, you never know what you're going to see whenever you're traveling down the road. And if you just kind of take that time and, follow up on these landmarks, but also stop and just ask a few questions, you just never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. So what, I know you just finished up season 5 and we're releasing that next month. But what does the future hold for the Ghost Biker?
So it's been kind of a crazy year. Back last September, I ended up going into a business partnership with my best friend, Dr. Christy Sumner, and we opened History Highways and Haunts LLC, and our business is centered there in the historic Scott County Jail, where we opened a true crime museum as well as a paranormal research center. And so we both said whenever we did this that, because she has her team Soul Sisters with her twin sister, and of course I have my solo team Ghost Biker, and so we had said, those two separate entities were going to still be important, putting our videos out, doing our investigations. So we've been really working on promoting the historic Scott County Jail and the activity that we have there. But I'm looking forward to, and I didn't even really know if I was going to be able to do a season 5, because between all that, and of course I self-produced the show, so doing the editing and all that on it, it's a lot. So I'm excited for season 6. I'm hoping to do more. I did do commercial locations this season. I actually ended up highlighting several places that haven't been investigated before, but they are all haunted jails. That's what I'm going to be focusing on this season. I'm really looking forward to doing more motorcycle traveling and more smaller locations for season 6. And then also, got a lot of different events planned for 2023 that includes some more partnerships with Harley Davidson and some more tourism commissions that's going to be coming up next year. So got a whole lot going on, plus a few extra ventures we've got going on with History Highways and Haunts that hopefully we'll be able to announce really soon as well.
Awesome. So because you have so much going on and you have a lot of back catalog stuff too, where can people find you?
Yeah. So as far as Ghost Biker Explorations go, people can catch up on the past 4 seasons on the Ghost Biker Explorations Facebook page, the Ghost Biker Explorations YouTube channel, and www.ghostbikerexplorations.com. The new season will drop, I think, I can't remember if it's the 4th or the 5th, whatever that first Tuesday is in October. And we're actually having an early release party. So if anyone is in the London, Kentucky area, We are. I'm going to be at Wildcat Harley Davidson on September 30th. We're actually going to release the first episode of season 5 there at the Harley Davidson. But otherwise, it'll drop every Tuesday during the month of October at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we do a follow up called Behind the Screams every Thursday night, where we go more in depth with the technology that's used, as well as more information on the locations that are being investigated. And then also, I do a live stream, which this airs on My Mix TV, as well as Ghost Biker Explorations Facebook and YouTube channel every Thursday night at 9 p.m. called Shop Talk Live from the Ghost Biker Garage, where we talk to different paranormal teams, authors, artists, different folks who are doing things in the paranormal. And then also you can check out the Historic Scott County Jail on the Historic Scott County Jail Facebook page, YouTube channel, Instagram under the same name, and then also www.historicscottcojail.com.
Yeah, I mean, I know usually that's about where I cut off at, but I do have a question, or not a question,
Sure.
more of how we point this out. But from
Mhm.
what I've seen on the Scott County Jail stuff, you're doing a few different things other that place, right? Because it's a museum.
It is.
You do have investigations there, and then you have I think you have like a escape room kind of stuff going on in there too. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
so we're essentially trying to open it up, make it accessible to the community. So during the day, we've got we've got true crime artifacts, a lot of articles, and people go in there and stay for about 45 minutes to an hour. We've got an audio tour, and so that's during the day if you enjoy history and true crime. And then in the evenings, as a paranormal research center, we do very intimate guided flashlight tours. Those are 90 minutes. We also offer guided ghost hunts where you can come, or 3-hour investigations where you can investigate with either myself or with Dr. Christy Sumner. And then we just recently opened up an escape room in there, and it's really cool because it's legit inside an old jail, and so you get to actually escape from one of the cells, actually from 3 cells total. But we're just trying to come up with all kinds of different options to bring new life to this old building, all the while keeping the historical integrity and also making it accessible to the community.
Yeah, there's something to say about an escape room coming out of a real jail and not just some warehouse that someone rented out or something. So
Exactly.
that's pretty cool.
And
Okay.
Christy, she put those puzzles together. I'm an artist, and so I tend to kind of hyper focus on things. And so, you know, you give me the website, give me, anything to make it look nice, I can totally do that. But when it comes to putting these puzzles together, that's totally her. She did a fantastic and amazing job on it. So I think we're at a 60-40 escape rate. 60 people have not escaped, 40 people have. So, yeah, and people seem to really enjoy it, especially compared to some of the larger places, in Gatlinburg and Nashville and that sort of thing. So it's pretty competitive, and we always look forward when people come to see if they're able to solve it.
Yeah, I spoke to Christy a couple episodes ago. She's awesome.
Yeah,
That definitely is a good mix for a partnership is to have her and you get the creative side on your side. So that's really good.
yeah,
Um,
it was definitely a great decision, and we think we bring a unique mix to the table.
awesome. Well, thank you for joining me. And like you said with the social media, definitely that's where you would find Ghost Biker Explorations, and definitely check it out, people. Really good. I mean, able to do 5 seasons and do what you're doing right now is pretty incredible.
Thank you.
So keep it up, obviously. And on behalf of Talk On to Me, I'm Reece, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.